The red dust kicked up around Jinwoo's boots as he walked toward the fence line. His weathered hands gripped the metal post while he watched the horizon. Somewhere out there, beyond the rolling hills of New Montana, the Kavari warriors were planning their next move. Jinwoo had lived on this ranch for 40 years. He came here as a young man full of dreams about making a life on the frontier. Now his hair was gray, and his back ached every morning. The dreams had faded like old photographs. The ranch stretched for miles in every direction. Strange alien creatures that looked like purple cattle grazed in the distance. These beasts were tough enough to survive on New Montana's harsh landscape. They gave milk that tasted like vanilla and meat that could feed a family for weeks. But the Kavari wanted this land back. They had been raiding the outer settlements for months. 3 ranches to the north had already been abandoned. The Williams family packed up and left last week after finding their fences cut and their livestock scattered. Jinwoo understood why the Kavari fought so hard. This had been their world long before humans arrived. The Federation had claimed it was empty land, but that was not true. The Kavari had lived here for generations. They knew every rock and every stream. The old rancher pulled out his communication device and checked the latest reports from town. Mayor Dongsik had sent another message asking all remaining settlers to move to the safety of New Hope City. The Federation troops were too busy fighting wars on other worlds to help defend one small frontier planet. "You should listen to him, Dad." Jinwoo turned to see his daughter So Young walking up the path from the main house. She had arrived yesterday on the supply ship from the inner colonies. Her clothes were clean and her skin was soft. She looked like she belonged in an office building, not on a dusty ranch. "This place is not safe anymore," So Young continued. "The Kavari attacked the Morrison Ranch just 2 days ago. They burned everything to the ground." Jinwoo nodded slowly. He had heard about the Morrison place. Good people. They had worked hard to build something on this difficult world. "I know what happened to Morrison," he said, "but running away will not solve anything." So Young stepped closer. Her eyes were worried. "What else can you do? You are one man with a few hired hands. The Kavari have hundreds of warriors." Jinwoo looked back toward the hills. He had seen the Kavari scouts watching his property. They moved like shadows across the landscape. Their weapons could cut through steel like paper. They rode beasts that could run faster than any human vehicle. "Maybe there is another way," he said quietly. That evening, Jinwoo sat on his front porch watching the sunset. The sky turned purple and orange as the day ended. In the distance, he could see small lights moving through the darkness. The Kavari were getting closer. His foreman Kyung-ho came up the steps and sat down beside him. Kyung-ho had worked on the ranch for 15 years. He was a good man who knew how to handle the alien livestock. "The boys are getting nervous," Kyung-ho said. "They want to know if we are going to fight or run." Jinwoo rocked back and forth in his chair. "What would you do in their place?" "The Kavari place?" "I would want my land back too." This surprised Jinwoo. Most humans on New Montana saw the Kavari as nothing but dangerous aliens who wanted to kill them all. "You think they have the right to this place?" Jinwoo asked. Kyung-ho was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "My grandfather lost his farm back on Earth when the big corporations moved in. He always said the land does not belong to anyone forever. It just gets passed from one hand to another." Jinwoo thought about this as the stars came out overhead. The night sounds of New Montana filled the air. Strange birds called from the trees. Insects buzzed in the grass. This world had its own life that existed long before humans arrived. The next morning brought news that changed everything. A messenger arrived at dawn with word that the Kavari war chief wanted to meet. His name was Taemin, and he was known throughout the frontier as a fierce but honorable warrior. The meeting place would be the old stone bridge that crossed Silver Creek. It was halfway between the ranch and Kavari territory. Both sides would come with only a few people. No weapons would be allowed. So Young was against the idea. This could be a trap. They might kill you just to send a message to other settlers. But Jinwoo had made up his mind. He spent the day preparing for the meeting. He put on his best shirt and cleaned his boots. This might be the most important conversation of his life. As the sun began to set, Jinwoo rode out to Silver Creek. Kyung-ho came with him, along with 2 other ranch hands. They left their guns back at the house as agreed. Taemin was already waiting at the bridge. He was a tall Kavari with dark green skin and bright yellow eyes. Scars crossed his arms and chest, showing he had survived many battles. 3 other Kavari warriors stood behind him. The 2 groups faced each other across the creek. The water flowed quietly between them. "You wanted to meet," Taemin said in rough but clear human language. "Speak your words." Jinwoo dismounted and walked to the edge of the water. He looked directly into the war chief's eyes. "I want to make a deal," he said. Taemin's warriors tensed. They had expected threats or demands for peace. They had not expected this. "What kind of deal?" Taemin asked. Jinwoo reached into his pocket and pulled out a single Federation credit coin. It glinted in the fading light. "I will sell you my ranch," he said. "All of it. The land, the buildings, everything, for 1 credit. The silence that followed seemed to last forever. Even the water seemed to stop flowing. Taemin stared at the old human rancher, as if he had spoken in an alien language. "You mock us," one of the Kavari warriors said angrily. But Taemin held up his hand for silence. His yellow eyes studied Jinwoo's face carefully. "You are serious," the war chief said finally. "Dead serious," Jinwoo replied. 1 credit for everything. Take it or leave it." Taemin looked at the coin in Jinwoo's weathered hand, then he looked back at the human's face. What he saw there was not fear or desperation. It was something else entirely, something that would change both their peoples forever. Taemin reached across the creek and took the credit coin from Jinwoo's hand. The metal felt warm against his green skin. He had fought many battles and claimed many victories, but he had never won a war with a single coin before. "This is strange magic," said Namsu, one of Taemin's warriors. "The human tricks us." But Taemin shook his head. He had looked into Jinwoo's eyes during their meeting. There was no trick there. Only truth. The kind of truth that comes from a man who has made peace with difficult choices. "No trick," Taemin said. "He means what he says." The Kavari war chief studied the coin again. It was worth almost nothing. A child could earn this much money selling fruit at the market. Yet with this coin, Jinwoo was giving away land worth millions of Federation credits. "Why?" Taemin asked the old rancher. "Why do you do this thing?" Jinwoo looked across the water at the alien warrior. "Because 40 years of fighting is enough. Because some things are more important than winning." The next morning, news of the deal spread through New Hope City like wildfire. People gathered in the streets to argue about what it meant. Some called Jinwoo a hero for finding a peaceful solution. Others called him a coward who had given up without a fight. Mayor Dong-sik called an emergency meeting at the town hall. The building was packed with angry settlers who had lost friends and family to Kavari raids over the years. "This sets a dangerous example," shouted Farmer Haejun. "If we give in to their demands, they will think all humans are weak. They will attack every ranch and every farm until we are all driven off this world." Merchant Minna stood up from her seat in the back. "Maybe Jinwoo is smarter than we think. Maybe he found a way to stop the fighting without anyone else dying. By surrendering everything we worked for?" Haejun shot back. "By handing our land over to aliens who want to kill us?" The argument grew louder and more heated. Some people supported Jinwoo's decision. Others wanted the Federation military to arrest him for treason. Mayor Dong-sik banged his gavel on the podium, trying to restore order. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, So-young was packing her father's belongings. She moved through the house like someone in a dream. Nothing made sense anymore. Her father had always been the strongest man she knew. He had built this ranch from nothing. He had survived droughts and storms and alien attacks. Now he was giving it all away for the price of a cup of coffee. "I do not understand," she said when Jinwoo returned from town. "This ranch is your life's work. Why are you throwing it away?" Jinwoo sat down in his favorite chair and watched his daughter fold his clothes into travel bags. "Sometimes you have to lose everything to save what really matters. What could matter more than this place?" Jinwoo looked out the window at the rolling hills and purple grass. The future. The hope that someday humans and Kavari can live on the same world without killing each other. So-young stopped packing and stared at her father. "You really believe that is possible?" "I have to believe it. The alternative is too terrible to accept." That afternoon, Administrator Dong-hyun arrived at the ranch with 2 Federation security officers. He was a thin man with cold eyes who had never liked the frontier settlers. He saw them as primitives who caused problems for the civilized inner colonies. "Citizen Jinwoo," he said formally, "you are accused of collaborating with hostile alien forces. The Federation Council has ordered me to investigate your actions." Jinwoo did not seem surprised. He had expected this visit. "I sold my property to someone who wanted to buy it. That is not collaboration. That is business. You sold valuable Federation territory to enemy aliens for practically nothing," Donghyun replied. "That could be considered an act of treason." "The Kavari are not my enemies," Jinwoo said calmly. "They are people who want to live on their own world in peace. Just like us." One of the security officers stepped forward. His hand rested on his weapon. "Sir, we have orders to bring you in for questioning." But before anyone could move, Kyung-ho appeared in the doorway. Behind him stood 6 ranch hands with serious expressions on their faces. "The old man is under our protection," Kyung-ho said quietly. "Anyone who wants to take him will have to go through us first." Administrator Donghyun looked nervous. He had authority on paper, but these were frontier people. They played by different rules out here. "This is not over," he warned Jinwoo. "The Federation will not forget this betrayal." After the officials left, Jinwoo continued preparing for his departure. He sorted through 40 years of memories, deciding what to keep and what to leave behind. Most of it would stay with the ranch. The Kavari could decide what to do with human belongings. As evening approached, Taemin arrived with a small group of warriors. They came quietly, without weapons, as had been agreed. The transfer would happen at sunset, just as Jinwoo and the war chief had planned. The old rancher met them at the main gate. In his hand, he carried the official deed to the ranch. The document was signed and sealed, ready to be transferred to its new owner. "Are you certain about this?" Taemin asked one final time. "Once this is done, it cannot be undone." Jinwoo nodded. "I am certain." The 2 leaders walked together toward the ranch house. So-young watched from the porch steps, tears running down her face. She still did not understand her father's choice, but she could see the determination in his eyes. Kyung-ho and the other ranch hands stood at a respectful distance. They had all chosen to stay and see their boss complete this strange business deal. Whatever happened next, they wanted to be witnesses to history. As the sun touched the horizon, Jinwoo handed the deed to Taemin. The Kavari war chief examined the document carefully, though he could not read the human writing. But he understood what it meant. After generations of war, his people would finally have their land back. "It is done," Taemin said. Jinwoo looked around at the ranch one last time. Tomorrow morning, 70 Kavari warriors would arrive to claim their new territory. They would find buildings and equipment and livestock that had been left for them to use, but they would also find something else. Something that Jinwoo had spent 40 years preparing, something that would change everything between their 2 species. The old cowboy picked up his travel bag and walked toward his vehicle. His life as a rancher was over. His real work was just beginning. Behind him, Taemin watched the human drive away into the gathering darkness. The war chief did not know it yet, but he held much more than a deed in his hands. He held the key to saving his entire civilization. The sun rose slowly over the hills of New Montana, painting the purple grass with golden light. 70 Kavari warriors moved across the landscape like a dark river flowing toward Jinwoo's former ranch. They carried weapons and tools ready to claim their prize. Taemin rode at the front of the group on his war beast. The creature's 6 legs carried him smoothly over the rough ground. Behind him, his best warriors followed in perfect formation. These were fighters who had never lost a battle. Today they came not to fight, but to take what was rightfully theirs. "War Chief," called out Scout Captain Kyung-soo as he rode up beside Taemin. "The human settlement ahead shows no signs of life. The old rancher has kept his word and left." Taemin nodded but said nothing. Part of him still could not believe this was really happening. For 40 years, his people had fought to reclaim this sacred land. Now it had been given to them for the price of a single coin. As they crested the final hill, the ranch spread out before them. The main house sat in a valley surrounded by strange human structures. Fences stretched in perfect lines across the grassland. Tall metal towers rose up from the ground like silver trees. Everything looked peaceful in the morning light. "It is smaller than I expected," said warrior Hyunwoo. "Why did the humans fight so hard to keep such a tiny piece of land?" "Because humans are greedy," replied Namsu. "They take everything they can and never give anything back. But Taemin was not so sure. He had looked into Jinwoo's eyes during their meetings. Those were not the eyes of a greedy man. They were the eyes of someone who carried a heavy secret. The warriors rode down into the valley and began exploring their new territory. They examined the human buildings with curiosity and suspicion. Most of the structures were made from local stone and metal. They would be useful for housing Kavari families who wanted to move here from the overcrowded settlements in the mountains. Young warrior Minho approached one of the metal towers that dotted the landscape. "What do you think these things are for?" he asked his companions. "Communication devices," suggested Kyung-soo. "Humans use them to talk across great distances." But when Minho climbed up to examine the tower more closely, he found something unexpected. The metal structure was not just a simple pole with equipment on top. It was hollow inside, filled with complex machinery that hummed with quiet energy. "War Chief," Minho called down, "you should see this." Taemin climbed up to join the young warrior. Inside the tower, he found panels covered with buttons and small lights. Cables ran down through the hollow center and disappeared into the ground below. This was far more sophisticated than any communication device he had ever seen. "This is not human military equipment," Taemin said slowly. "This is something else entirely." The war chief ordered his warriors to examine every structure on the ranch with new eyes. What they found made no sense at first. The cattle fences were connected to underground power sources. The water pumps drew liquid from deep beneath the surface and sprayed it in careful patterns across the land. The grain silos contained not food but thousands of sealed containers filled with tiny seeds. Elder warrior Daewon had fought humans for 30 years. He knew their weapons and their tactics, but he had never seen anything like this equipment before. "These are not ranch tools," he told Taemin. "I do not know what they are, but they were not built to raise livestock." As the day wore on, more mysteries revealed themselves. The warriors found rooms full of scientific instruments hidden beneath the main house. Computers displayed charts and graphs showing atmospheric conditions, soil composition, and weather patterns going back decades. Everything was labeled in both human and Kavari languages. But the biggest discovery came when Scout Captain Kyung-soo found a sealed vault behind the barn. The door was locked with a simple combination lock. Attached to it was a note written in Kavari script. "For the children of two worlds," the note read, "use this gift wisely." Inside the vault, the warriors found detailed plans and instruction manuals. The documents explained how every piece of equipment on the ranch worked together as part of a massive terraforming system. The metal towers were atmospheric processors that slowly cleaned poison from the air. The fence network distributed healing chemicals through the soil. The water pumps brought minerals from deep underground to restore damaged earth. Jinwoo had not been running a simple ranch for 40 years. He had been healing a dying world. Taemin sat in the main house reading through page after page of technical documents. Many of the terms were difficult to understand, but the basic message was clear. This terraforming system could restore dead land to life. It could turn poisoned soil into fertile ground that would grow food for thousands of people. Most importantly, it could save the Kavari homeworld. Taemin's hands shook as he read the final section of the manual. It contained detailed instructions for adapting the terraforming technology to work on different planets. The atmospheric composition of the Kavari homeworld was carefully analyzed, along with recommendations for the exact chemical treatments needed to reverse decades of industrial damage. He knew, Taemin whispered to himself. The old human knew about our dying world. He knew we were not raiders looking for conquest. We were refugees looking for a new home. Elder warrior Daewon entered the house and found his war chief sitting in stunned silence. "What have you discovered?" Daewon asked. Taemin looked up with wonder in his yellow eyes. "We have been given the greatest gift in the history of our people. The power to save our homeworld, the power to bring our children back from exile. I do not understand." Taemin stood and walked to the window. Outside, his warriors were still exploring the ranch, still discovering new pieces of the incredible puzzle that Jinwoo had left for them. "The old human did not surrender to us," Taemin said. "He trusted us. He gave us the tools to heal our dying planet because he believed we would use them wisely." Daewon was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "What kind of enemy gives away such power?" "Not an enemy," Taemin replied. "A friend we never knew we had." As evening approached, the Kavari warriors gathered around their war chief to hear what he had learned. Taimin held up one of the technical manuals and spoke in a voice filled with awe. Brothers, we came here expecting to find empty human buildings and useless human tools. Instead, we have found the salvation of our people. Jinwu the rancher was not our enemy. He was our secret guardian, working for 40 years to give us this moment. The warriors looked at each other with confusion and growing wonder. Young Minho raised his hand. War Chief, what do we do now? Taimin looked around at his fighters, these brave souls who had followed him through countless battles. Soon they would need to become something more than warriors. They would need to become the builders of a new future. Now we learn, he said. We study these gifts the human left for us, and then we decide what kind of people we want to become. 43 years earlier, Dr. Heiwan stood in the Federation Science Council chamber on Earth. Around her sat the most powerful people in human space, admirals, politicians, and corporate leaders who decided the fate of entire worlds. The Kavari homeworld is dying, she told them, pointing to images on the large screen behind her. Their industrial age polluted the atmosphere beyond repair. The soil can no longer grow food. Their people are slowly starving. Admiral Jiangsu leaned forward in his chair. What does this have to do with us? The Kavari have been hostile since first contact. They attack our ships and raid our colonies. Dr. Heiwan changed the image to show Kavari refugee camps on the edges of their solar system. Thousands of families living in makeshift shelters on dead asteroids and barren moons. They are not attacking us for conquest, she explained. They are desperate. Their children are dying. They see our terraforming technology and know it could save their world. But we refuse to share it. Corporate Representative Yunji spoke up from across the table. Terraforming technology is classified. We cannot give such powerful tools to an alien species that considers us enemies. They consider us enemies because we let their people suffer when we have the power to help, Dr. Heiwan replied. What if we found another way? The room fell silent. Everyone knew Dr. Heiwan was the best xenobiologist in the Federation. Her research had made peaceful contact possible with dozens of alien species. But this proposal seemed impossible. What kind of other way? Asked Federation President Minjun. Dr. Heiwan took a deep breath. What she was about to suggest would require the greatest act of faith in human history. We send someone to live among them, not as a diplomat or a spy, but as a neighbor, someone who can build trust over many years, someone who can slowly, carefully introduce terraforming technology in a way that brings peace instead of war. The politicians and military leaders exchanged worried glances. This sounded like madness. You want to give terraforming secrets to hostile aliens and hope they do not use the technology against us? Admiral Jiangsu asked. I want to give terraforming help to desperate people and trust that kindness will be returned with kindness, Dr. Heiwan corrected. But it would take decades, maybe a whole lifetime. The debate that followed lasted for hours. Some called the plan brilliant. Others called it suicide. In the end, it was President Minjun who made the final decision. Dr. Heiwan, if we approve this mission, who would be brave enough to volunteer for such a dangerous assignment? Dr. Heiwan smiled sadly. She had already found her volunteer, a young Federation engineer named Jinwu, who had lost his family in a Kavari raid. Instead of seeking revenge, he wanted to find a way to end the cycle of violence forever. Back in the present, Taimin sat in Jinwu's study, reading through 40 years of daily logs. Each entry told part of the incredible story of the longest undercover mission in human history. Day 1, read the first entry. Arrived on New Montana? The Kavari scouts watched me unload my equipment. They think I am just another human settler trying to steal their land. They do not know I'm here to give it back to them. Taimin turned the pages following Jinwu's journey through 4 decades of patient work. The human engineer had disguised terraforming equipment as simple ranch tools. He had pretended to raise alien livestock while actually healing the poisoned soil beneath their feet. Every day he had worked to restore the land that would eventually be returned to its original owners. Day 847, another entry read, The atmospheric processors are working better than expected. The air quality has improved by 12% in the past year. The Kavari do not realize it yet, but they are breathing cleaner air when they scout near my ranch. Taimin felt tears forming in his yellow eyes. While his people had planned raids and attacks, Jinwu had been quietly working to save their lives. Day 2, file 190, continued another entry. Heiwan sent new soil treatment formulas that should work on the Kavari homeworld. I tested them in Sector 7. The results are promising. If this works, we could restore an entire planet in less than 50 years. Young warrior Minho entered the study carrying a small device he had found in the barn. War Chief, what is this machine? He asked. Taemin examined the device. According to Jinwoo's notes, it was an air quality monitor. For 4 decades, it had been measuring the health of New Montana's atmosphere. This measures the air we breathe, Taemin explained. The human wanted to make sure his healing work was actually helping our people. Minho sat down heavily in a nearby chair. He cared about our health, even while we were planning to attack him. Especially then, Taemin said. Read this. He showed Minho an entry from Jinwoo's log dated just 1 month earlier. Day 14-235, it read. The Kavari raids are getting more desperate. Their scouts look thinner each time I see them. Their homeworld must be close to complete collapse. I need to accelerate the timeline. It is time to give them everything I have built here. Minho stared at the words in amazement. He knew we were starving. He knew we were dying. That is why he sold the ranch for 1 credit. He was trying to save us. Meanwhile, in the underground laboratory beneath the main house, elder warrior Daewon was making his own discoveries. The walls were covered with photographs of the Kavari homeworld taken over many years. Jinwoo had been studying their dying planet from a distance, planning exactly how to heal it. Computer files contained detailed analysis of Kavari biology, culture, and language. Jinwoo had spent decades learning everything he could about the people he was trying to help. He understood their customs, their beliefs, and their desperate need for a new home. But the most shocking discovery was a series of video messages that Jinwoo had recorded for the Kavari leaders. Daewon activated the first file and watched the aged human rancher appear on the screen. My name is Jinwoo, the recording began. If you are watching this, then my mission is complete. For 40 years, I have worked to build a bridge between our peoples, not a bridge of words or treaties, but a bridge of trust. The recorded Jinwoo gestured toward charts and diagrams showing the terraforming system. This technology can save your homeworld, he continued, but it comes with a choice. You can use it to heal your planet and build a peaceful future, or you can use it as a weapon against humanity. The power is in your hands now. Daewon called for Taemin to come see the recording. The war chief arrived quickly and they watched the rest of the message together. I know your people have suffered, Jinwoo said on the screen. I know you have lost children to hunger and poison air. I know you see humans as enemies who caused your pain. But I also know that underneath the anger and fear, the Kavari are good people who love their families and want peace. The recording showed Jinwoo looking directly into the camera with tired but hopeful eyes. I am giving you this gift not because I expect gratitude, but because it is the right thing to do. Your children deserve clean air and fertile soil. They deserve a future where they do not have to fight for survival every day. The message ended with Jinwoo standing up from his chair. Use this technology wisely, build something beautiful, and maybe someday our grandchildren can play together under the same sky. The screen went dark. Taemin and Daewon sat in silence for a long moment. Finally, Daewon spoke. What kind of people are we if we do not honor such a gift? Taemin looked around at the laboratory filled with 40 years of careful preparation. Jinwoo had devoted his entire adult life to helping people who considered him an enemy. He had trusted them with power that could reshape worlds. We are the kind of people who must prove worthy of his trust, Taemin said. 3 days after discovering Jinwoo's gift, the Kavari warriors gathered in the main house for the most important meeting in their history. Taemin had called together not just his fighters, but also the wise elders who guided their people through difficult decisions. Elder Minna was the oldest Kavari on New Montana. She had lived through the first contact with humans 60 years ago. Her ancient eyes had seen too much war and too much death. Now she studied the terraforming equipment with wonder and worry. This power is greater than anything our people have ever possessed, she said slowly. With these tools, we could heal our homeworld in a single generation. But power this great always comes with danger. Young warrior Hyunjin stood up from his seat near the window. He was barely 20 years old, born into a world of constant conflict with humans. His parents had died in a Federation bombing raid when he was a child. I do not trust this gift, he said angrily. The humans have killed our people for decades. Now one old man gives us some machines and we are supposed to forget all the pain they caused us. Several other young warriors nodded in agreement. They had grown up hearing stories of human cruelty and broken promises. To them, this terraforming technology was just another human trick. What if the machines are designed to fail? Asked Warrior Sujin. What if they work for a few years and then break down, leaving our homeworld even more damaged than before? What if the humans can control the machines from far away? Added Namho. They could use them against us whenever they wanted. But Elder Daewon shook his head. He had spent 3 days studying every piece of equipment on the ranch. I have examined these machines carefully. They are not weapons. They cannot be controlled from a distance. They are exactly what Jinwoo said they are. Tools for healing. Taemin listened to the debate without speaking. As war chief, the final decision would be his to make. But he wanted to hear every voice before choosing a path that would affect generations of Kavari children. Scout Captain Kyung-soo raised his hand to speak. I have a question for our elders. If we use this technology to heal our homeworld, what happens to our war against the humans? The room fell silent. This was the heart of the matter. For 60 years, the Kavari had defined themselves as warriors fighting for survival. If they no longer needed to fight, who would they become? Maybe that is the real gift, said Elder Minna softly. Not just the power to heal our world, but the chance to stop being a people at war. Young Hyun-jin stepped forward, his face red with anger. You want us to forgive the humans for everything they did to us? You want us to become their friends and pretend the past never happened? I want us to think about our children, Mina replied. Do you want them to grow up as warriors like you? Always fighting, always angry, always afraid? Or do you want them to grow up as builders and farmers and scientists? Taemin finally stood up. The room grew quiet as everyone waited to hear their leader's thoughts. Hyun-jin asks good questions, Taemin said. The humans did cause us great pain. Many of our people died because they would not share their technology with us. We have the right to be angry. The young warriors smiled, thinking their war chief was siding with them. But, Taemin continued, anger is a fire that burns the one who carries it. We have been angry for 60 years. What has it given us? Dead children and a dying homeworld? He walked to the window and looked out at the terraforming equipment scattered across the ranch. Jinwoo was one human who chose a different path. Instead of fighting us, he spent 40 years trying to save us. He could have used this technology to make himself rich. He could have used it to help only his own people. Instead, he gave it all to us. Taemin turned back to face the room. So now we must choose. Do we honor his trust or do we let our anger destroy this chance for peace? Elder Daewon spoke up. War Chief, what if we try to walk both paths? We could take this technology back to our homeworld and use it to heal our planet, but we could also keep fighting the humans on other worlds. That would make us thieves, Taemin said firmly. Jinwoo did not give us these tools so we could become better killers. He gave them to us so we could become something more than killers. Young warrior Minho had been quiet during most of the debate. Now he raised his hand nervously. War Chief, I found something else in the humans' laboratory. More recordings that I think you should see. Taemin nodded and Minho activated a video file on one of Jinwoo's computers. The screen showed the old rancher sitting at his desk. But this recording was different from the others. Jinwoo looked tired and sad. I know some of your people will not trust this gift, the recorded Jinwoo said. I know they will think it is a trap or a trick. I understand their anger. If I were in their place, I would probably feel the same way. The Kavari warriors watched in fascination as Jinwoo continued speaking. But I want you to know that Dr. Haewon and I studied your people for many years before starting this mission. We learned about your history, your culture, your values. We know that the Kavari are people of honor. When you give your word, you keep it. When you make a promise, you do not break it. Jinwoo leaned forward, looking directly into the camera. So I am asking you to make me a promise. Promise that if you use this technology to heal your homeworld, you will also use it to build peace between our peoples. Promise that your children and our children will not have to live in fear of each other. The recording showed Jinwoo standing up and walking to a shelf filled with books about Kavari history and culture. I have spent 40 years learning about your people, he said. I know that long ago, before the pollution destroyed your world, the Kavari were not a warrior race. You were builders and artists and teachers. The war came later, when desperation forced you to fight for survival. Jinwoo picked up one of the books and held it toward the camera. This book tells the story of the great gardens of Kavari. Prime. Beautiful places where your ancestors grew food and flowers together. Places where children played and learned in peace. That is the world this technology can give back to you. The recording ended with Jinwoo setting down the book and looking directly at his audience. The choice is yours now. You can use this gift to return to what you once were, or you can let the pain of the past destroy the hope of the future. The screen went dark. The room was completely silent. Finally, Elder Minna spoke. The human speaks truth. We were not always warriors. We became warriors because we had no choice. But now we have a choice again. Taemin looked around at his people. He saw the confusion and hope and fear in their faces. Some wanted to cling to the familiar anger of war. Others dared to dream of something better. We will vote, he decided. Every adult Kavari on New Montana will have a voice in this decision. But first, we will study Jinwoo's gift for 1 full month. We will learn how it works and what it can do. Then we will choose our path forward. Young Hyunjin crossed his arms. And if the vote goes against peace? What if our people choose to take the technology and continue the war? Taemin met the young warrior's challenging gaze. Then we will live with that choice. But I pray to our ancestors that we are wise enough to choose hope over hatred. As the meeting ended, the cavalry began the most important month in their history. Some studied the terraforming equipment with excitement. Others watched for signs of human trickery. All of them wondered what kind of people they wanted to become. The future of 2 species hung in the balance. 1 month later, the entire Kavari population on New Montana gathered in the valley below Jinwoo's former ranch. Over 3,000 people had come from settlements across the planet to cast their votes. Families sat together on the purple grass, sharing food and quiet conversations while they waited for the results. Taemin stood on a platform built from ranch materials, holding the sealed box that contained their future. Inside were voting stones dropped by every adult Kavari on the planet. White stones meant acceptance of Jinwoo's gift and the path to peace. Black stones meant taking the technology but continuing the war against humanity. Elder Minna opened the box with shaking hands. She was too old to count quickly, so young warriors helped her sort the stones into 2 piles. The crowd watched in tense silence as the piles grew. When the counting finished, Minna looked up at Taemin with tears in her ancient eyes. The white stones number 1847, she announced. The black stones number 1205. A murmur ran through the crowd. The vote was closer than many had expected, but peace had won. Young warrior Hyunjin stood up from where he sat with his supporters. His face was angry but resigned. The people have spoken, he said loudly. I do not agree with this choice, but I will honor it. We are still one people even when we disagree. Taemin felt relief wash over him. He had worried that the losing side might try to split their community apart. But the Kavari had always respected the will of the majority, even in difficult times. The decision is made, Taemin announced. We will use Jinwoo's gift to heal our homeworld, and we will build peace between Kavari and human peoples. 3 months later, the first Kavari ships left New Montana carrying terraforming equipment back to their dying homeworld. Taemin traveled with them, along with technical experts who had learned to operate Jinwoo's machines. But he also brought something else with him, a message for Jinwoo. The old human had left an address where he could be reached on the inner colony worlds. Taemin had spent weeks writing a letter in careful human language, explaining what his people had decided to do with their gift. Jinwoo received the message while living in a small apartment on the peaceful world of New Geneva. He had been working as a consultant for the Federation Science Council, helping them develop new peaceful contact protocols with alien species. When he read Taemin's letter, tears ran down his weathered face. Honored Jinwoo, the letter began. Your gift has saved our people. The terraforming machines are healing our homeworld faster than we dared to hope. The air grows cleaner each day. Plants are beginning to grow in soil that was dead for generations. Our children breathe easier and smile more often. Jinwoo wiped his eyes and continued reading. But your greatest gift was not the machines. It was showing us that humans and Kavari can trust each other. You gave everything to people who had been your enemies. Now we want to give something back. The letter went on to explain that the Kavari Council had voted to establish the first joint human-Kavari research station. It would be built on the restored lands of New Montana, in the exact spot where Jinwoo's ranch had stood. We want you to come home, Taemin had written, not as a rancher this time, but as the director of the center that will teach our peoples to work together. Your real work is not finished yet. 6 months later, Jinwoo stood once again in the valley where he had spent 40 years of his life. But everything was different now. Where his ranch house had been, a gleaming research complex rose toward the sky. Human and Kavari scientists worked side by side in laboratories filled with the most advanced equipment in known space. His daughter, So Young, had returned to New Montana as well. She now served as the Federation's first ambassador to the Kavari people. Her office was in the same building where her father had once eaten lonely dinners and recorded his daily logs. "I still do not understand how you knew this would work," she told Jinwoo, as they walked through the research center together. "How did you know the Kavari would choose peace over war?" Jinwoo stopped beside a window that looked out over the restored valley. Kavari and human children were playing together in a garden that grew both earth flowers and Kavari crystal trees. "I did not know," he admitted. "I only hoped. Dr. Haywan and I studied the Kavari for years before I came here. We learned that they were good people forced into terrible choices by desperate circumstances. We gambled that if we removed the desperation, they would choose to be good again." Through the window they could see Timon teaching a group of young human engineers how to calibrate atmospheric processors. The former war chief had become one of the center's most respected teachers. "The gamble paid off," So Young said. "This time it did," Jinwoo replied. "But we cannot always count on luck. We need to build systems that make peace more profitable than war. We need to create connections between species that are stronger than our differences." That evening, the research center held its monthly community dinner. Hundreds of humans and Kavari gathered in the main hall to share food and stories. Jinwoo sat at a table with Taemin and their families, watching the next generation learn to see each other as friends instead of enemies. Young Namho, who had been one of the warriors to first explore the ranch, now worked as a soil specialist helping to restore damaged worlds across the galaxy. He had married a human engineer named Yu Jin, and their children spoke both languages fluently. Uncle Jinwoo called out little Sumin, Namho's 6-year-old daughter. She was half human and half Kavari, with her father's green skin and her mother's brown eyes. "Will you tell us the story again?" Jinwoo smiled and lifted the child onto his lap. Around them, other children gathered to hear the tale they never grew tired of hearing. "Once upon a time," Jinwoo began, "there was an old cowboy who had to choose between holding on to his land and giving it away. He chose to give it away, and that choice changed the galaxy forever. Because sometimes you have to lose everything to save what really matters," little Sumin finished, repeating the moral of the story. "That is right," Jinwoo said. "The most important things in life cannot be owned. They can only be shared." As the evening went on, more stories were told and more friendships were made. Representatives from dozens of alien species had come to study the New Montana model of peaceful cooperation. What had started as one old man's desperate gamble had become a template for building bridges across the stars. Years later, when historians wrote about the end of the human-Kavari war, they would call it the miracle of New Montana. But Jinwoo knew the truth. There had been no miracle, only the simple human belief that trust could be more powerful than fear. The old cowboy had given up his ranch for $1 and gained a universe where his grandchildren could play safely under alien suns. It was the best deal he had ever made. As the stars came out over New Montana, Jinwoo looked up at the night sky and smiled. Somewhere out there, other species were learning to trust each other. Other worlds were being healed. Other children were growing up without the shadow of war hanging over their heads. The fading cowboy had found his purpose at last. Not in holding land, but in giving it away. Not in building walls, but in tearing them down. Not in being strong enough to fight, but in being brave enough to trust. And in the end, that had made all the difference.